So I am testing out this nice camera with a good mount in this car. The last time I used this camera in a vehicle was in my old Jeep Cherokee. We're recording. And it was a, well, thrown together tripod support, and I did put a lot of work into it, but it didn't work very well. And the issue, and this one has got some vibrations too, but there's no way to stop vibrations completely on a moving platform that's sitting on springs and driving over lumpy, bumpy surfaces, right? So, interesting. Da Vinci might save me on this one. That would be really cool. So we're in Steamboat right now, and we are heading towards the famed, or the defamed, probably more accurately, if truth be told, Rabbit Ears Pass, and we'll just have to see where we go from there, because my eventual destination today is Fraser, Colorado. And what can I tell you about today? Today is December 19th, Monday. We've had roughly 10 days of snow, and as you can see, it's piling up. I'm in Steamboat Springs right now, and I'm in Steamboat Springs right now, heading south. You go through Steamboat Springs, you come in heading, if you come in from the west, you come in heading east, and you leave heading south, which is what we're doing now. We're heading south. On our way to the base of Rabbit Ears and up and over. So anyway, I'm testing this camera mount out. Maybe I'll take a photo of it. This is a test, so none of this may even make it onto the channel, you know, and it might. I don't know. We'll see. But my idea behind building a mount now, and you don't really get it because you don't see the mount, but the mount is actually attached to the roof of the car, and it's extremely strong. It's if I needed to use it as a grab handle, I probably could. I wouldn't want to, but it's quite strong. And the idea is to try to minimize the vibrations, as much as I can. Again, it's impossible to completely minimize vibrations. It's impossible, can't be done. In a moving vehicle, sitting on springs, driving on a rough surface. Yeah. So putting all those caveats in place, but the more effort that I put into a stable mount, the better the video. This camera is a 4K camera, but it will only do 4K 30. So while 4K 30 isn't bad, 4K 30 is a lot better off of a motionless tripod. And any rattling and shaking you have, the difference between 4K 30 and 4K 60, there'd be quite a bit of a difference between the two formats. And as such, even though it's a 4K 30 camera, it's a pretty good camera. So we'll see. We'll see what we've got. And we'll do some different different terrains. I guess I could say terrains, plural, because it's actually plural. Right now I've got another issue I'd like to dispense with, a jacket. So today was 17 below in Craig, where I started from, and it was, I think, 14 below when I left, 14 below zero. And so we're having a winter. For those of you who don't understand that global warming is a gigantic scam, for those of you that don't understand that carbon dioxide is probably one of the weakest greenhouse gases there is, they be. For those of you that don't understand that water vapor is the strongest greenhouse gas that we have, it actually runs the weather. Without it, we wouldn't have a planet we could live on. For that matter, without CO2, we wouldn't be able to live either. Although we exhale CO2. That guy just flashed me like, oh, there's a cop up here. Anyway, for those of you that think global warming is a thing, and I understand, you've been told global warming is a thing your entire life, by teachers, by people you trust. Your parents might even believe it, but it's not a thing. And if you're scientifically predisposed, you won't, well, if you're scientifically predisposed and you want the truth, global warming is a scam. Because the data that is used to prop global warming up is fabricated data. And it's a real shame that it is, but it is. So, anyway, the more you know, so they say. Okay, so now we're getting on the famed rabbit ear stocks. I think we're about right. Well, I've set the tilt and pan on this tripod, this mounting platform. And I'm just testing everything out, so I think it looks pretty good. But we'll see. You know what I'm liking right now? I'm going to go ahead and take my four-wheel drive out. I'm also going to just ease up the pass. So this video platform on wheels is an older vehicle. It's a 2003 Geo Tracker, Chevrolet Tracker, not a Geo Tracker, and it's quite a good little car in the snow. In fact, it's amazing in the snow. All of the features that make it underpowered and a bit annoying to drive in on a dry road make it an extremely good car for winter conditions. The only thing that I don't like about the four-wheel drive on this car is that you have to stop to put the four-wheel drive in. So anytime, like right now, if the road gets bad, and I expect it real soon, I'll have to pull over and put the four-wheel drive in. However, the nice thing about that is that there's less weight. This is a compact car. They basically didn't put synchros, sets of synchronizing gears in the transfer case. And so that's, that was their call. But when this thing is in four-wheel drive, baby, it will go. But although this is a test run, I'm probably going to run the camera until the batteries are all out. I think this will get me to Rand, and I think I can actually I can go Rand and go all the way back with what I've got. Or at least back far enough to catch what I want to catch today. We'll see. Now we have there's another storm coming in. It's supposed to be beginning to snow again on Tuesday night. Today's Monday. Tomorrow I have to go to Laramie, Wyoming. And then, back home. And Wednesday I have a little bit of traveling to do, not much. So maybe this week I'll miss the storms. But for the last 3 weeks, I have been driving through incredibly strong storms. 3 weeks ago, there was not this kind of snow on Raptors. That was actually just a tiny little bit, maybe 6 inches of snow on the side of the road. And if you notice that the delineator poles have flags attached to them, and they're about 10 feet tall, I think. That's because by the time the winter's done, if we have a big snow season, they will be buried. Those things will be buried. Those delineator poles will be buried. And it's not really surprising. I mean, Steamboat gets 35 feet of snow a year, roughly, anyway. And that's in the last few years, which have been relatively warm and mild winters. This winter looks like a winter. It really does. So we'll just have to see what happens. I don't know if I want to risk. I know I've got some streaks in the glass, so we'll just have to see how that works. I'm also trying a couple filters out. Trying a circular polarizing filter out so that you don't have reflections from the glass. And this thing, is pointing in the sun a lot. The sun is, the sun is up there creating trouble. And it might actually be creating trouble. It looks to me like it's focusing well. So we'll just have to see how it works. On rabbit ears, they really do have to move the snow like you've noticed, where they've used a loader to push the snow just as far back as they can. They've got to do that, because if they don't, this road would be either a tunnel, which it probably would be great to drive through a snow tunnel and have it collapse on your car, or it would be like a giant slot that the sun couldn't get down into, and that would also probably be prone to landslides, well, snow slides. So this is really quite, I believe, and I've been on all the passes in Colorado. I believe this is the most severe pass there is when the weather is bad. This is not the steepest pass, it's not the highest pass, but it has a combination of weather. When the weather is in that, it's scary. And a couple of weeks ago, I almost got into a wreck on this pass on the other side when the wind kicked up and just covered, it dropped visibility for everyone. And I was spinning because I had to put my brakes on because people had stopped right in the highway. I ended up, and this, by the way, was on the east side of Raptors. We're on the west side going east. And this, I was on the east side, coming back from Laramie, heading west. In the afternoon, when the wind is usually more prominent, by the time I stopped, I thought I was just going to hit vehicles. It was one of those situations where I had no control. I was just sliding. But I finally, I'd take my foot off the brake, and my tires grabbed. Extremely good tires. Destination XTs, Firestone Destination XTs, that they deserve a shout out because they are really, really amazing tires. Anyway, when I finally quit spinning and sliding, I was in the lane that I'm in now, keeping in mind that there was I was in the oncoming lane, and most of my car was just about over the shoulder, over to the right. And I really had no choice. I had to just back into my lane. I was relatively sure there wasn't anyone behind me, that there wasn't anyone behind me. There wasn't. So I continued on, and after about 5 miles, got out of the worst part of it, and it became much more pleasant. This is a much more pleasant side of Ravagers. It's not the scary side, although it can be. I've been on this side of Ravagers where it was so slippery that I started sliding back down the hill. I had to stop because some people had spun out in front of me, and when I stopped, I started sliding backwards. Of course, this was in a car with inappropriate tires a long time ago. And anyway, I'm gonna hope that we don't run into any ice up here. It looks really good. They've had time to clean it out, so we'll see. Go ahead and speed up a little bit. Now I'm going 67, and I've got a lot more vibration in the car. I mean, this road's a little bit lumpy. I don't really like what I'm seeing here. So. Okay. The last time I was on this road was last Wednesday? No, Tuesday, and it was completely snowbound. There was no, you couldn't see any of the road. It was just snow. So and it's been really cold weather ever since, and when it's really cold weather, it's difficult to clean the roads up. I think that they probably have used a little bit of de-icer, but as you can see, these places that don't get sun are still somewhat icy. And I really don't want to go. I don't want to be going 65 or 67 from a dry spot and hit an icy spot, or like this. This is a pretty nasty spot also. It's wet, but it's, you know, they've used some melt on here, some salt or some other chemical. And I'm just not sure about the traction I'm getting. I have got really good snow tires, like I said. These Destination XPs, this is the second set that I've bought. I liked them so much the first time around. Actually, the issue I had with the tires was I had an improper alignment, which ate my tires up. And so I probably lost about 10,000 miles of life on the tires because of this alignment, which scrubbed one side of the tires off completely. It was towed in too much, or I don't know. It was angled in a pretty horrible way. Anyway, when I caught that, I ordered new tires right away, because what I'm doing is I do this for my work. This is not my fun thing to do. This is my work thing to do. But while I'm doing it, I might as well have a camera rolling. Anyway, so I had tires ready to go this year. It was a great thing. And I had the brand new tires put on about 4 weeks ago, and that week it started snowing. It hasn't really stopped since. So if you don't know, for the sportsmen and women, the west side of Rabbit Ears is reserved for cross-country skiing, and the east side of Rabbit Ears is reserved for snowmobiling. That's why you see all these snowmobile tracks out here. I mean, they get a lot of snow. It's pretty cool. They actually have a few parking spots here also. They even have bathrooms up here. I mean, it's pretty cool. I actually appreciate that. Although it annoys me, they lock them up in the summer. You know, for people that work for a living driving, you know, having your bathrooms scoped out is great, because you can kind of work your schedule around your bathroom breaks. Now, up here in the mountains, pretty much anywhere where there's, where you can be somewhat secluded, you can call that your bathroom. But over to the left right here is a parking area, Dumont Lake, I think, yeah. Parking area and a bathroom. And even further over to the left is Rabbit Ears. You might have seen a small mountain with a couple of rocks sticking up out of it. That's actually Rabbit Ears. This is a pretty tall peak. I think it's 10,000 something, 10,000 and change. So for a Colorado mountain, it's reasonably high. This is a bad side as far as a weather side of Rabbit Ears. This is where the weather can get really crazy. So far it's looking good. And then up here there are a couple more parking areas, and there's at least one more bathroom, and there's one over to the left, and there's big parking areas. And in the summer people actually camp up here. They camp up here all summer. But anyway, we just passed those parking areas. And I think that if you see over to the right, they've dug some trenches. I believe that's for the wind. It's basically a snow fence made of snow, which is a pretty good idea. And important, because the snow, this is where I think I spun out. I wasn't entirely sure where I was at, but I think it was in this area. Anyway. And you'll get a good view of rabbit ears again, now looking right up at it. It's a real prominent peak in North Park. Well, I guess you could call this North Park. We're getting ready to drive northeast. Into a really, I think, one of the most awesome parts of Colorado. Just a really cool area. Volcanic mountains to the south, a nice plateau to the north. Just a really nice area. I mean, that's where we're headed. My goal today is Fraser. However, I have several different ways that I can go to get to Fraser. So, one way is to continue on this road, which is Highway 40, down through Kremling. But I don't really like that road. There's an area down here that we're just coming up on called Muddy Pass, and it's a big curvy, long mountain pass that it's really speed restricted. You get behind really slow people. Right now, apparently, I'm the slow person. I'm doing 53 and a 45, and I have someone right up my ass. That's really typical for this road, but I'm not really willing to haul ass down this road because we could hit slippery spots. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to take my time. Anyway, there are other ways to get to Fraser from here that I think are a lot safer, a whole lot less people on your ass, like these people are on my ass. And even though right now I'm the one that's slowing someone down, and keeping in mind I'm going faster than the speed limit, and I typically go faster than the speed limit, just a little bit, because I don't really want to slow people down. Usually, you'll find someone going quite a bit slower, slower than the speed limit, and they mess traffic up for everyone. Now, these people probably get annoyed at someone like me who isn't going as fast as they're going, although I'm still going above the speed limit. But, that's just kind of the nature of people. And because I do this job, I pretty much have to do it. And I have to have a sense of humor about how crappy traffic is. And I guarantee you it's crappy. And these people are on my butt like that. Let's see what this road looks like. I'm actually going to pull over and put my four-wheel drive in from this road. Let these people get around me. Okay. So this is the difference between that car and my car. Now that car's probably all-wheel drive, which I don't like nearly as much. As I got another one behind me. Okay. I don't like nearly as much as four-wheel drive. But they are able to shift on the fly. And I have other vehicles that I can do that with, but I don't like driving them for this route. So, yeah. This will be a good test, I think. So the next town that we are going to be in is called Rand, Colorado. So. Well, I guess I'm putting my four-wheel drive in and going to be sacrificial. I love this valley. The color of this brush that's all the way down this valley is just amazing. And it's like amazing all year long. It's very interesting stuff. Anyway. And it's almost like a color change, you know. Like in the afternoons when I'm coming back up this road, if I come back up this road, the color, the way, in relation to the sun, the color is different. But anyway, I don't know if any of that will even register with this camera, but this is a good camera, it should. And it may not. I'm running a UV filter, and I'm running, I think I've already mentioned it, a circular polarizing filter, to see if I can clean up some of the artifacts that the windshield creates, and also clean up the color. So we'll see how that's all going to work. And you might, out in the distance, there's some snow-capped mountains out there. We're looking at them. I believe that's called the Forest Range. There's a forest up there, I think Forest Park, or a weird name really, for a forest. So right now I'm doing 67 is where I'm mainly at right now. Just a couple miles above the speed limit, so that in a way I'm fulfilling my obligation to not block people by going slow. And if someone wants to pass me, I've got someone behind me, but they're not looking at this point anyway, all that concerned about passing me. Now the people that passed me, I mean, that looks like they're down the road a ways. Well, here's the issue. I'm not all that comfortable going extremely fast on a road that the last time I was on was entirely, completely snowpacked. But it's looking pretty good. I mean, it's really looking okay. However, one corner with ice on it is all you need to wreck off the road, and I really, I don't want to do that. I want to get home tonight. So, see, a good example of where this snow is just on the road. Why is it here? I mean, it is. And if there were snow on this corner, this could be a really bad corner. Like for instance, right there, people coming up this way, having a little snow on. That's not terrible, as long as you can keep one wheel on asphalt, you're in pretty good shape. As far as traction goes, as far as not sliding off the road goes, like if you can keep your passenger side of your car, the two wheels, two tires on the side. Like right now, the driver side tires are on the snow, and my passenger side tires are on the blacktop. So even though I have two wheels on slippery snow, I'm not going to, unless I'm going insanely fast, I'm not going to break traction. Anyway, that's the idea. And this more some of that really insanely beautiful brush. It's like this from chocolate to almost fluorescent green colors that you see in this brush as you see it as the year progresses. When spring comes, it gets that weird, like almost fluorescent yellow, fluorescent green look. I think the term is, and probably the actual reason is that sap is rising in the plant and it changes the color of it. But there's just something amazingly beautiful about this little valley. It is my favorite valley in Colorado for these plants down here. Amazingly cool stuff. Good. Still looking good. So now we're swinging around to the north. Actually, north is a little bit off to our left, like at about 10:30. From the position we're at now. But we're getting into the park here. The park being actually it's kind of a stepped area, but basically a big flat area between the mountain ranges. And over to the left, running to the north, and now we're going pretty much north right now. Over to the left are the Zirkles, and over to the right, which we can't see, are a bunch of volcanic mountains. And then over to our, I'm saying that guy would just pass me. And then over to our, we haven't gotten to, we'll see here in a little bit. We'll see the forest range again. So, yeah. You keep in mind, this is a test. I don't have a script. I'm not really doing anything other than just testing. This guy is starting to annoy me because he's on my ass too much. I hate that when I do that. Yeah, sense of humor. I have a sense of humor. This guy can pass me if he wants to. I'm not stopping him. Like I said, I'm going faster. I always go faster than the speed limit, and then I beat myself up when someone's behind me when it's really them. They're doing it. They're getting on my ass when I'm going faster, and trying to push me, I guess, is the idea. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're just going fast and waiting for a time to pass. But it does play on me. It does bother me. I get really annoyed that they hang back there. Now, I understand when I get behind someone, I try to not be on their ass unless I'm going to pass. I don't know that rhymes, so. This person are passing. The guy probably thought I was racing him, and I really wasn't. I was just getting up to speed, but he picked a really stupid place to pass. So, well. I suppose in a situation like that, I should just let him pass and get ahead of me, and then I could speed up. That way he's not having to race me to get around me. That's not really what I was trying to do. He doesn't know that. Yeah, we sort of get into the land of the wind up here. In the summer, I usually turn right there, and I go to a place. There's a bathroom, so it's a special area. It's a Seymour Reservoir, and it's just over to the right by about 3 or 4 miles. Now today, we're going to turn in just a couple miles anyway. So this person in front of me, who I want to demean because actually, that was a misunderstanding, I think. If he actually thought I was trying to race it, because I wasn't. I was just getting up to speed. So, anyway. This road was rebuilt this year, and so now we have a centerline rumble strip. And I think there's also a rumble strip on the shoulder. Not much of a shoulder here, though. But you got what we got. So there's a pretty good oil field out here, and they've been doing a lot of work all year to this oil. They've been doing fracking out here, private land, so all the environmentalists out there, actually the communists out there that are trying to shut energy production in the Western countries down, even the Western communists, the globalists that are also doing that, can't shut it down on private land. I think it's great. Screw them. So anyway. Yeah, so we got about less than a mile. I might break the coffee out. Yeah, about 85 miles. That's about right. Yeah, so you can see we got a pretty good, typically a southwest. Now we're going to see how this mount does on a bumpy road. This is County Road 28. And if we would have continued going northeast, we would have gotten to Walden, Colorado. But now we're running basically east, and to our south there's a bunch of volcanic mountains. They're really cool. It's an awesome, cool place. In the summertime, I'd like to spend more time out here. But it's pretty. It's just a neat area. The forest range that I was talking about is sort of in front of us, and it goes off to the north, off to the left. You'll see more of it. And then there's a mountain back in the background right now that's called Parkview Mountain. We're going to go just right on the other side of that mountain. There's a pass there. I think is it Cottonwood Pass? In the summer, that road would have been right about taken. So, let's see how this road has fared. I'm in no big rush. You know, the cool thing about a road like this is that you've got quite a bit of traction. And I don't have a-holes on my ass. Believe me, that makes me happy. Or even nice people. So now we're looking at the forest range. And it's a range of, there could be some 13,000 foot mountains in there, but I think they're mainly 12,000 and something. It's an impressive set of mountains. And keep in mind, if you don't know about Colorado has mountains up to 14,441 feet. I think that's Mount Elbert. And there are some notable 14ers that I've been on. But I'm not a mountain climber. I don't give a crap unless there's something interesting to see. And so the mountain that I've enjoyed going up in the past, going up, was Mount Antero, and that's for the gemstones, for the aquamarine and topaz, quartz, all kinds of cool gemstones. There's another one I'm forgetting, really interesting. Can't remember. So this road, County Road 28, makes a triangle south of Walden. The road that we got off is one leg of the triangle. This is the second leg, and we'll hit the third leg, which heads up to Walden also. So basically, the point of the triangle is each intersection and Walden. Does that make sense? Cool little ranch over to our right. You probably can't see that. I don't think we have the field of view for that. Also, a nice little volcanic peak poking up there. And I think I can't think of the name of the ranch right now. Bayard? Is it Bayard Ranch? But that's what the peak is named after a ranch around here. And there's also Buffalo Pine, Buffalo Bark, Buffalo Run, Buffalo something ranch that's sort of behind the mountain over a little bit to the left, like about 2 o'clock maybe. I mean, that's what I'm seeing. I don't know what you might be seeing, maybe 3 o'clock. That's actually an uplifted ridge On the other side of that is a nice little valley, and there's a ranch there. So they've got, we'll pass it in a second. They got one of the really tall, when you put logs over the entrance to your ranch. I have no idea why they do that. I don't get it, but it's kind of neat looking. These guys not only put the logs up over their roadway, but they also put a roof on the log. But the log was pretty cool looking. I mean, I guess I can understand now. You'll see it. So, at about 10 o'clock, there are some jagged mountains. They're sort of blue right now. Again, I'm assuming you can see what I'm seeing, but this is a test. Like, I might not be able to. Anyway, those I think are known as the Seven Utes. I believe that's the mountain, and it's a mountain just south of Gould, Colorado. And then there's a ridge in front of us, basically that ridge that's between those mountains. And that's called Owl Ridge. Then there's an Owl Mountain that basically we were looking at, but I don't think I can point it out to you. But there's another dirt road that goes between Rand and Gould, which are roughly the same size. So here's this thing I was telling you about. This crazy little thing. Buffalo Creek Ranch, okay. So now we know it's a creek. From what I'm seeing, it looks like this mount is doing an extremely good job. I do see slight vibration, but I've never seen it so slight with this camera. But it's going to affect the video quality. But I hope that I can get satisfactory video, because this country is, if you don't live here, this country is really a pretty amazing country. And if I could just get it close to the quality that I'm seeing it, that would be great. One of my other intentions, and I still have a lot of work to do to make this happen, is to, if this works, to put videos out that have just the noise of the car without me talking, and then also have another video on a different platform with me talking about politics. YouTube does not play fair. And so YouTube shadow bans, censors, cancels, and otherwise punishes people who they don't have the same ideology with. Which is, by the way, the majority of this country does not have the ideology that these woke bastards have. So, anyway, quite annoying. So I believe this is North Park, the southern end of North Park. But it may not be. This may not be North Park. I'm thinking North Park might be another spot. But either way, it's definitely what you would call a park, a big flat spot. Like I said, it's mainly steps. We started out on, I think, the lowest step. Step being just a long little ridge in a series of ridges. That's what I would call a step. And you can see in front of us, there's another one of these ridges, but they go all the way to the mountains over there. And by the way, the dark mountain at like 12:30, right, damn near in front of us, that's Owl Mountain. And it's deceivingly high up there. There's quite a forest up there. We'll not be going that way today. Or for that matter, not until probably June. But there's a, if you're going to Laramie, Wyoming, there's a dirt road on the other side of that mountain range that goes right up the valley. That mountain range is roughly north and south, like most mountain ranges in Colorado. And the Laramie River Road is, I think that's also County Road 103. But it runs all the way into Wyoming. And actually, if you go north from Walden, this means nothing to you if you don't know where I'm at. You basically intersect that road that goes north from Walden. You intersect it up in Wyoming after it's gotten out of the mountains. Really cool. Both roads are really nice. I like both roads. It's a pleasure sometimes to be able to do this. However, it does cost my time, and I have other things I'd like to do, so, I'm taking the paycheck for it. About, let's see, 50, yeah, we've done about 50 miles so far filming. I think we're doing good. I can't really read the screen anymore. This is a cool little, we're coming off of one of the ridges. This section right in here, in the springtime and the fall, is like a garden. It's really pretty. And I say that, this is sagebrush. If you're not familiar with this country, there's a lot of sagebrush around here. And it's interesting stuff, There's so much of it, and it's kind of like a sage green, I guess, would be a good name. I mean, sage green, right? Yeah. But it's impressive stuff. And then some of these interesting bushes that are really totally cool colors are hanging out over here. They're actually in a lot of places. It's just that valley we just got down through has the largest bunch of them I've ever seen in Colorado. That doesn't mean that there aren't larger bunches, but I've seen a lot in Colorado. Most of it, probably all of it. Other than back roads that have escaped my... I'm going to stop here and look at my... because I got a text. Come on. Okay. Delete. Okay. You can hear the wind. It's really getting with it. Oh, you can see the wind, can't you? Huh. I think this is County Road 14, or Highway 14, excuse me. But I'm not necessarily sure about that. But directly ahead of us is Parkview Mountain. It's the tallest one, yeah, directly ahead of us. That's where we're headed to next. Oh yeah, big windstorm. That doesn't bode well for tomorrow. I have to head north. Laramie. Okay, I'm going to take four-wheel drive out. Put a yeah. Now this is a really bumpy road. So it'll be interesting to see what we get off of this road. Sometimes when the snow's crossing the road like this, it's not a bad idea to slow down a little bit, just in case the drifts build up on the road. They can build up and be pretty high, and they can mess you up. Yeah, like right here. Now I'm just going to go ahead and put my four-wheel drive back in. Okay, there we go. Yeah, seems like the right thing to do. Not as bad as I thought, but something like that. If you saw how I saw it, we were just looking through the side of it, right? And it's just like a big white patch of snow. We're going to be in the snow soon enough. I'm pretty, well, we'll see. My issue is I like to be efficient, and running four-wheel drive on a dry road doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. But when the condition of the road is iffy, maybe it's better to just have it, better to do it. Yeah, well, try it again. I'll take it out one more time. This is another one of those valleys with all those. There's not as many. It's a little bit different. Anyway, whatever. So this is the town of Rand. I have no idea what this town is, what it was set up for, because most towns in Colorado were mining towns of some kind. But this could have been just a ranching town. Or maybe it was an outpost. Maybe it was a fort. Maybe it was a Pony Express stop. Who knows what it could have been. But it's a really cool town. Now Gould, the town I told you about, we can get to taking that road and heading to the northwest. We're going to Granby. That's our next town. I thought that sign said no snow plowing. That would not be good up here because this road is going to have snow on it. I think that the Parkview Mountain is also a 12,000 something mountain. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, by the way, over to our left, where those mountains were looking pretty cool over there, that's the start of Rocky Mountain National Park. And you get to Rocky Mountain National Park from the west by going into Granby and then shooting up sort of northeast out of Granby. And it will take you into the Rocky Mountain National Park, which is pretty cool, you know. I was saying this, I'll say it again. In Colorado, our mountains pretty much max out at 14,000 feet. And not only that, but they usually don't start until anywhere from like 4,000 to 8,000 feet. So they're not like, when you're looking at it, you're not looking at, like, for instance, Mount Rainier, which, hell, that's a giant mountain. I mean, that mountain competes with the European mountains, which are roughly that kind of a size, you know, because Mount Rainier starts out at roughly sea level. There are some plateaus around it, and it goes up it goes up to 14,000. I believe it's 14,000. And the mountains in Switzerland, and in Finland, and Sweden, and Italy, and, well, Germany, all the Alps, right? The Alps and the associated mountains, and even where the fjords are, right? They're not necessarily the Alps, but they start at sea level or very low, and they'll go up to, 8,000 or 10,000 feet, and sometimes up higher. Sometimes I think that the highest mountain in Europe is about 15,000 feet. And I can't think of the name of the mountain off the top of my head, but I think it's 15,000 and change, I believe. But the mountains themselves start usually at a lower altitude. They're not sitting up on a real high mesa, typically anyway. So the mountains are quite a bit more dramatic than the Colorado mountains. And if you've been and seen, you know what I'm talking about. But at the same time, the Colorado mountains, I'm quite impressed with them. They're quite interesting. And I think the thing about these mountains that makes them as rugged as they are is the weather. The fact that the mountains start at 6,000 or 7,000 feet up a mile, and go up to, 14, 15,000 feet, 14 and a half thousand feet, excuse me. We get, the height puts us up north quite a bit. And therefore, we have conditions where we are extremely frigid. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and stop, and my four-wheel drive back in. But I did it at 20 miles an hour. Hey, that's good to know. Why can't I? See what that does. All right, so Mark V Mountain is ahead. Looks like we're still recording. We're getting ready to go into the Route National Forest, which we just came out of, by the way. Rapids is in Route National Forest. It's a pretty big forest up here. In Wyoming, it changes from Route to Medicine Bow. And that's pretty giant up in Wyoming also. Now, I have not been on this road since October. This road was hit with the landslides in the spring, in the summer, and in the fall. And they had some pretty heavy rainfall. Now, this is after fires last year. There were fires basically on the other side of this pass that burnt the vegetation. So now the ground is loose, and now we get a bunch of moisture, precipitation, and in the form of thunderstorms that really dump it fast. And there was a lot of damage up here. I can't imagine what it would have been like. Well, I guess I can't imagine. It would have been really annoying to be living up here. People do live up here, and having the road all messed up. One day, I think it was early October, maybe it was in September, when I'd found out about the really big slides, there was a sign back at Rand that said road was closed, but the road wasn't closed. Well, I thought it was close to through, A lot of times they'll put road closed to through traffic. Well, I'm through traffic, but I thought, well, I can probably sneak my way through this, being known as through traffic. Well, that's great. Let's see that I've got dirt. Let's try that. Stop. Maybe that's better. That looks a little better. Okay. So I have a runner. So I drove over. Well, I was already here, right? I didn't know that there was a road issue. So I was like, well, crap. If I turn around now, I've got to drive an extra 100 miles to do my job. But if I go up here and get turned around, I'll have to drive an extra 120 or 30 or 40 miles to do my job. Whatever. It was actually not that many extra miles, but it was still substantial. And that is exactly what happened to me. I got stopped down here on the other side of the pass, heading down into Granby. I probably wasn't more than 5 miles away from Granby. And the highway department turned me around to go back. And I think they did it more because I disobeyed their sign than anything else. And I'm not saying, I disobeyed their sign. And what am I going to say? I don't really have a leg to stand on, other than I was hoping I could get through because I was already going to have to turn around and drive a substantially larger route, even if I turned around at Rand. And I'm thinking, well, I guess in for a penny, in for a pound. I really like the four-wheel drive of this car. It is amazing. It gives me a lot of ability to steer in this icy stuff. One of the things it does for me is that compared to a rear-wheel car, the front-wheel drive doesn't have this issue nearly as much, but compared to a rear-wheel drive car, which is basically pushing the front tires along. Imagine if the front tires weren't turning and it was just skidding them along. So there's a lot of friction involved with that. Well, even though the tires turn, there's still a certain amount of friction where the back tires are pushing the front tires. And so if you're in an area that's really slippery, because you have already got that imbalance between the back and the front of your car, if there's a way for the force to go out of alignment, which is like I'm saying you're going to spin out, that can happen, on a slippery surface. Your rear tires will spin out, or your car will fishtail a little bit, because your rear tires are trying to catch up with your front tires at that point. And so having the four-wheel drive in even though you're not like going through deep snow or you're breaking trail or anything, you eliminate at least half of that. The reason I say you eliminate half of it is because the differential usually powers one wheel. When just going down the road, it's usually powering one wheel. If it's in four-wheel drive, now it's powering one wheel in back and one wheel in front. Maybe. Some differentials might only be powering one wheel, period. So you know. But anyway, there are times when that's probably the case. And differentials kick in, under different conditions. So that's why I say you eliminate at least half of that force when you have your four-wheel drive in, because now your steering wheels are powered, and if you think about it in another sense, those wheels are turning, and those wheels are where you're pointing your car to go. So they're actively trying to move your car in the direction that you want your car to go in. Whereas the rear wheels, when you turn your front wheels, and if you're in rear-wheel drive, you're basically setting up a condition to spin out if you're on really slippery stuff. So just that alone makes having four-wheel drive really pleasant. Okay, so we're getting up here to the sign. Let's see if I can focus in on this sign for 1 second. I'll try that. Okay, I don't think we can go further than that. So we're at 9,683 feet. Willow Creek Pass summit. And we're on the Continental Divide. And that mountain in front of us is Parkview. We're just looking at it from the east now. In fact, we're actually driving due west on this little stretch. So I keep on my work phone, I keep Google Maps up, and mainly so I can see what direction I'm driving in, just so I can orient myself and orient the landscape. I spend a lot of time on Google Earth looking at Colorado because I like to go out and be in this environment, when it's not freezing. In fact, I like to go up on top of Parkview. There's some really interesting rocks up there. I'm sure prospectors have already been up there, and people a lot tougher than me probably lived up there looking for stuff, because there are gems and metallic, they're metallic. There are valuable minerals in this area. Maybe not in this specific area, but maybe in this specific area. So when I'm driving and I've got a compass, I can see which way is north. I can look at a landmark and I can sort of reference that back later on when I'm looking at Google Earth, if I remember. And I do remember. I have a pretty good memory about that. And it's kind of handy because you can really get lost if you want to know what mountain is what mountain, or, if you want to be oriented in Google Earth to what you see when you're driving. It's helpful to know the directions of certain things from other places. Like, for instance, at an intersection. Like the intersection that I stopped in and checked my messages at. Maybe there was a mountain right there, like Owl Mountain, for instance, that was straight in front of me. So I can go to Google Earth, I can go to that spot, and I could basically dive down onto that spot, looking to the east, and I can see Owl Mountain. And that orients me, and it lets me know what mountain is what. One feature that Google Earth Pro quit doing, well, Google Earth became Google Earth Pro. For those of you that use Google Earth, you know this already. One of the really great features of Google Earth that I used all the time was the and it was in the sidebar where you could check things that you wanted to see on the map. It was mountains. When you were looking at mountain ranges, it would pick out the named peaks and give the elevation, and it would also give an elevation profile, which means that it would show you, if you were looking at it from the south, what the mountain looked like, a cutaway of the mountain from the direction you were looking at. That I didn't find as useful as just knowing the elevation of the mountain and the name of the mountain. That was great. I was able to discover several mountains around here that I thought were actually different. I had incorrectly identified them based on, just my observations as I'm driving. Because a lot of mountains are just next to another mountain. And so, there's not that many lone mountains out there. Mount Fuji is a lone mountain. Lone Mountain is a lone mountain. It's an imaginary mountain. But, yeah. Parkview is somewhat of a lone mountain because it's the highest point when you're looking south, from the park we just came out of. Now, another cool thing in four-wheel drive is that if you're going downhill, like I am, I'm doing about between 35 and 40. If I have this car, this is an automatic, by the way, if I have it in drive, this car will, the engine will drop down into its highest gear and basically idle down the hill. But if I put it in a lower gear, the engine RPMs will rev up, and with my foot off of the gas, and I'll just do it right now, you might be able to hear it. Right now, my foot's on the gas. I take my foot off the gas. It slows the car down. Now, not only is it slowing the car down, but at least one tire in front and one tire in back is call it dynamic braking. It's not really dynamic braking, but it's kind of like that, other than you don't get the power back. But the idea is that it's braking of a sort. You take your foot off the gas and your car slows down because your engine RPMs are trying to go back down to idle. Now, there's not enough gasoline being pumped into your engine to support that RPM, so it's trying to slow down. So you basically have the four-wheel passenger car version of a Jake brake, and a mild one at that. So, although there have been times when I have taken my foot off of the gas and have slid, but that's extremely icy conditions. Now, it's cold this morning. The ice isn't that slippery. So, just so you know. Anyway, it helps going down grades because you can take your foot off the gas and have braking activity or braking action going on, which is a good thing, without using your brakes. And then if you need to brake more, you can apply your brakes lightly. And even though this is not a truck, and I've driven trucks before, I've driven big trucks, so I understand. When you're in a big truck, you can burn your brakes out in a minute or two. You can burn them right up because a big truck is a huge amount of weight, especially when you think of the diameter and the composition of the material that is slowing down a massive amount of weight. You realize that you've got to be smart. If nothing else, you've got to be smart about brakes when you're driving a truck, because they'll just burn right up on you. But a lot of people burn their brakes out. It's easy to do. But I kind of treat a car similarly. And really, when you're going on ice, you want to do everything as gradually as you can. You really don't want to hit the brakes really hard. Like right now, if I hit the brakes hard, you see, that's hitting the brakes hard. The car stops, tires stop, and the car, you don't have control of it. But if you hit the brakes gradually, or pump the brakes, This car is a little bit too old for anti-lock brakes. Well, actually, no, that may not be true, because my Cherokee, which is older than this car, has anti-lock brakes. This car doesn't have anti-lock brakes that I know of. And so I pump the brakes when I want to slow down on ice. If I'm trying to slow down quicker, then I'll pump the brakes, and that's a good technique to know, especially if you're caught not paying attention and you see up ahead something that you need to be going slower to navigate. You can pump your brakes, and the alternative, if you hit your brakes hard, you'll probably just slide. So if you pump your brakes, even if you slide, you're letting off of your brakes, and so you're letting your tires grab the road again. In case anyone ever wondered about that. You hear about these things, but do people tell you why? Do people know why? I don't know. It's like you hear, I'll go out on a limb here, this is a bit political, but if you are a regular person and you're not a scientific person, and I mentioned this a little bit before, when you hear people that are purported to be scientists or actual scientists that might actually be lying to you, tell you that global warming exists and greenhouse CO2 is the cause of it. Actually fossil fuels is really what they're getting at. That's why using the CO2 is so important. They can't use water vapor as their evil gas, because that has very little to do with the fuel that we burn. So they have to use CO2 because that is a large proponent of what is burnt off of coal, oil, wood, for that matter, whatever, fossil fuels. So right away they're kind of stuck. But if you don't know science, if you don't understand that CO2 is not the evil greenhouse gas that they claim it is, by the way, that corrupt politicians have well, let me change this. Corrupt bureaucrats within the EPA have listed CO2 as a dangerous gas. That's incredibly bullshit. Incredible bullshitty was what I was originally going to say. You see, the incredibly works, the bullshitty, right? Bullshitty. That's kind of a play on words, but so if you're a regular person, you're not a scientist, you're not science inclined, you're not mathematically inclined, and you just live your life and do your thing, and you got kids or you're busy or whatever it is that you're doing, or worse yet, you have been in a Democrat family and you're a Democrat just because you've been a Democrat, and you just believe what you're told, which is almost the worst thing you can ever do in this world, I think. The more I live, the more I realize that believing what you're told is almost the worst thing you can do. Anyway, if you're that person and you don't know about science, and you hear a scientist, someone that looks like a scientist, or they, say global greenhouse gases are dangerous, CO2 is dangerous, and you hear this day after day, and you hear stories about everything is global warming, right? If you notice on the news, everything is global warming. Everything. Well, what is global warming? It's probably, something about evil white men. That if you're not paying attention and you're just floating through this world, not paying attention, you'll just agree. It's like, okay, apparently it's CO2. Apparently there's global warming. It's all bullshit, but if you don't pay attention and you don't know enough to check it, and for that matter, if you're either too busy, you just don't know, or you don't care, or you have an ideological bent to agree with your political party no matter what, then I would say you're part of the problem. But sadly, if you're one of those people and you believe what other people tell you, if you just open your mouth and grab the bait, you're a sucker. And it's really bad for you, because I think one of the really important things in this world is to think things through and believe things or not believe things on your own terms, which is use the logic and reason that you have available. I mean, everyone has that. Everyone can make these decisions. You don't have to be a super scientist to understand that you're being conned. All you have to be is a prudent thinker. So a lot of people don't get that. And to run us back down now to what I was talking about, which is you hear people tell you things like pump the brakes when you're in the snow. You know, they'll tell you certain things, but do they tell you why? Because the why is pretty important. I think it is. It's good to be able to know how to do things that are important, but it's also, I think, really important to know why. And if you know why, and you think about it, you may be able to develop insights about something that are novel and unique, and maybe even useful to the entire, to the planet. You might be able to come up with something that could save people's lives. But if you're not thinking about stuff and you're just accepting things, you're probably not going to do that. Even if you are, I mean, the likelihood is probably slim. But if you're not thinking about things, you can pretty much count that out. I'm just saying it's important to think about things. And it's useful to know things and to know why. In fact, to go back to the global warming hoax again, if everyone understood science and couldn't be bullshitted by liars, media types, and politicians, there would be no global warming. They would not even try it, because the people that understand know it's bullshit. The only thing that they want to do is they want to shut down the West. They want to shut down democracy, and this is their best way to do it. They glommed onto this probably about 10 or 15, 20 years ago. I noticed that it started being the global warming scam, which everyone knew was just a bullshit, right? Like Greta Thunberg's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa or whatever was one of these people that started these conspiracy. Call it a conspiracy theory because that's what it is. He was blaming, he wasn't the original guy, by the way, but he agreed with the original guy that was saying, this CO2 is bad, it's a greenhouse gas, and that's what. Well, actually, before that, the fact that people claimed global warming existed, period, that's where the lie is. So, but if our society, and for that matter, if most people had a firm, what used to be a 6th grade education in science, they would not fall for this shit. They would be, you couldn't sell it to them. And we would have a much brighter society. It's a real shame to see this happen. And it's really a shame when you understand that it's just bullshit. And I used to waste my time on Facebook arguing with people that would call me a climate denier. The left loves to use that term, denier. They like to put their enemies in a disparaging light. And I get that. I understand what they're doing. A climate denier. Well, they're actually knowledge deniers. They're science deniers. They're common sense deniers. Did I say logic deniers? Because if I didn't, I should have. If I said it twice, that's probably still not enough. And they're reason deniers. But what they have that the majority of people in this world don't have is they have the big microphone, and they hammer every day. They hammer. You just watch. This is a cold winter, and I'll bet you that before the day is out, news reporters all around the world are going to say this cold winter is due to climate change. Now, in a way, they could be right because the climate does change, but we know what they mean. They mean global warming. They mean we're burning fossil fuels and changing the atmosphere. Which I mean, it's bullshit. And the real data proves it. That proves it's bullshit. But again, that's really not even in question. The only thing in question, in my mind, is when will people wake up to the fact they're being lied to? And I gotta say, from what I'm seeing as I get older, I don't think people are. I think people are going, I think that the majority of the people that believe that climate change is real will believe that climate change is real to their dying day. And will fight for, actually, the insane, murderous actions. That's a pretty house, by the way, if you saw it off there. The insane policies that climate change, the people that are allowing this to happen are ushering in, it's insanity. Shutting down 3,000 farms in the Netherlands? That's insanity. Shutting down farms because of fertilizer, that's a shame to see, actually. Shutting down farms because fertilizer has bad climate changing chemicals in it is insane, utterly insane. Buying up farmland like we have some entirely too stupid, intelligent guy doing this, Bill Gates. And it's interesting and probably important to point out, you can be incredibly smart and buy all the bullshit, hook, line, and sinker. I don't understand why we're that way, but we're that way. That's a fact you have to face. Bill Gates is not a dumb guy. And maybe Bill Gates actually knows the truth. Maybe Bill Gates is actually a communist and wanting to destroy capitalism, because that's what global warming is all about. It's about destroying the West. And you might wonder, who would be doing something like that? Who would be behind something like that? Well, the globalists are obviously behind that. You know, the one world government people. And by the way, the one world government people, they're communists. But there are also other communists out there that want to be the big dog. And you know who I'm talking about, if you know anything about this, China. So, quite an amazing thing that on the basis of an incredibly thinly disguised, quite overblown, rife with quite easy to find proof of compromised data, the global warming hoax, politicians and bureaucrats are getting away with literal murder. And it's getting worse. It ain't getting better. What do you think the anti-meat thing is in America? And in Europe, for that matter. Believe me, in China, there's no anti-meat thing going on. You know, China, I mean, they've got some issues, but they understand that people need meat, which is another inconvenient fact for the left to swallow. Yes, there's a couple puns there. There are a couple puns there. There's a couple puns there. Yeah, that's probably not proper English. There's a couple puns there. But there's they are. Anyway. It's really amazing. So, it's funny how a subject will blow up and expand into something else. But the ability to understand what's really happening and to think about things, actually think about things for yourself, you know, it's important. It's really important. If you're not doing that, you're fucking stupid. And you're happily stupid, and you're willingly stupid, especially if you allow bureaucrats and politicians to think for you, because that's what you're doing. And these people will kill you. That's what they're planning on doing. That's their whole goal. If you look at what they're doing, they are planning on killing the population. They are the extermination cult. And if you take that down the road a little further, you find that it's just pure evil. It can't be anything else. But that's a talk for another time. And again, like I said, this is a test. None of this may actually be getting through. Who knows? It'll be interesting to hear what this sounds like. And by the way, there's a feature in my editing software that can take the background noise completely out of my voice. I'm wondering if I can also have the background noise to use and my voice, if I could just split them into two channels, because that'd be great. Because I could use one channel with just my setup, which would really be great. I could use one channel for background noise and put a video out with no political stuff in it, for ridiculous social media outfits like YouTube, who have to. You know, when you have to censor your opponent, you got a pretty weak argument. Or as the left is clinging to, it's dangerous speech. It's dangerous. Elon Musk is dangerous. Look what he's doing. It's dangerous. Okay, how is it dangerous? Left? Do you mean some leftist is going to go off and kill people? Because that's what crazed leftists do. When was the last time some crazed right-winger killed a bunch of people? And by the way, the answer to that question cannot be Hitler, because Hitler was also a leftist. If you've bought into the argument, into the lie that Hitler was right-wing, you bought another ridiculous story. Let me tell you. Do you know what the Nazi, that name stands for? It's the National Socialist Party. Socialist is a big clue that you shouldn't overlook. It's not the National Conservative Party. It's the National Socialist Party. What the left does with that particular lie is they say, well, Hitler was to the right of Stalin. Or Hitler was to the right of Pol Pot. I don't know. Pick somebody and just say Hitler was to the right of that. So Hitler was a right winger. So that's what they're doing. They're trying to sell you that one of the most, but there's a lot there. There are a lot of evil people in this world. They come and gone, and probably more to come. Hitler was one of them. He was a communist. He was a socialist. He was not a conservative. So that only works on people that blindly believe, that don't know, or that don't care to know. But if you actually research these things because you want to know the truth, you can find the truth. It's not hard to find. It's just that I believe that one of the things the left has done, especially with education, is they've done what they can to turn people into idiots that do not think for themselves. And I think in a way, the speciality, craze, that's probably not the right term. When I was a kid, there were some specialists, mainly medical, I think. And I think in science there were specialists. But a lot of people went to work and did all kinds of things. Like if you were a carpenter, you grabbed a hammer and you put boards up. You also put wiring in. You also put plumbing in. And I mean, you did a lot of things that now are specialized. So I think that one of the ways that the left has successfully stupefied people is by putting everyone as much as they can in a specialist category, and then creating a social environment that you really should always stay within your lane. And you shouldn't think outside of your lane. Let somebody else do that for you. That's my opinion. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. But I am right about this. The left does not want you to think for yourself. The left tells you what you think. If you do not agree with the left, then you become, even if you're not white, you become a white supremacist. Like that's the first thing that happens to someone who questions the left. No matter what your race is, no matter where you live, if you question the left, you become a white supremacist. You're all down with white power, whatever that is. And I'm going to get off this subject. I'll just say in closing, when was the last time you heard of an actual conservative right-wing person grab a gun and shoot up a school, or shoot up a bunch of people, or shoot, create an issue? It seems to me like I can't remember, several years back anyway, that someone on the right has done anything like that. At the same time, I recollect that everything that happened this year, mass shootings, mass killings, was done by a leftist, was done by someone on the left. And last year the same thing, and the year before the same thing, and the year before the same thing. And by the way, I was in Washington, D.C. in June of 2020 when the Black Lives Matter now we're back on Highway 40? Yeah, I think this is 40. Getting ready to get into Granby. So yeah, I was there. I was there doing a job for a museum, ironically enough, for the FBI, when Black Lives Matter crowds were tearing up DC, and when the whole world was focused on George Floyd and the injustice of whatever. It was all bullshit. It's always bullshit when it comes to the left. They take something and they turn it into a horrible perversion of something. They killed people. They destroyed things. And the vast majority of the people that I saw, at least in DC, were white college kids. Their parents were probably the professors of every university, throughout the country, and maybe even in other countries. Those were the people that comprised Black Lives Matter. I saw very few actual black people there, because more black people than white people have to go work, like us regular regular non college parents equipped white folks, or for that matter, black folks or any of us, we all got to stay home and work for a living. But the entitled white college professor kids, and that's really the club that the left has gotten a hold of firmly. It's the college kids, and I understand why, because most professors, over 90% of them, are a bunch of leftists. What do you think they're going to teach their kids? So anyway, but I saw it. I was there, and don't bullshit me. 11:40. Yeah, I kind of got a late start today. Wonder what the temperature is in Walden, in Granby. Yeah. Oh, I do wonder what the temperature is in Walden. It's just that it's not going to affect me too much today. I'm going to say it's probably about 5 degrees right now. Yeah, pretty cold out there. Do we have a thermometer clock anywhere? I've really not paid attention to Granby enough to know whether there's a thermometer clock here or not. Not seeing one yet. There usually is one on a bank. Not seeing it. Well, I'll stop up here. Right here. Yeah, you're not going to cut me off, buddy. You know, I've got a chip on my shoulder about the speed of this car. It goes so slow in regular, like regular traffic like this. Although weirdly, when I have it in 4-wheel drive, I think it's got more power, a lot more power. I'll have to look into that. But I've got a phobia, or no, it's not a phobia. It's what's the term? It is when you are paranoid. It was paranoia. I have a paranoia that I'm going super slow and always stopping people, slowing them down, because this car is so slow in regular pavement. It's an interesting car because I love it for its snow handling ability. I didn't pick this car. This car came to me. It was my mom's car, and she passed away last year. And I would much rather have my mom back than be driving my old Jeep. But I don't mind driving this car. Nobody wanted this car, and because of that, it ended up coming to me after I thought about it a little bit, using that thinking part of your brain, realizing that most of my cars are fun project cars. And this is an actual reasonably roadworthy, low mileage, well put together little car that I probably should go ahead and take it. And so I went ahead and took the car, and it's been a good thing. So obviously I would have rather come about it in any other way, but because I really love my mom, I still do. What do? That's you get on with life, because that's what we have to do. What is this person doing? Okay. It's funny, the person's sitting in the turning lane, but without their turn signal on, I could make up a lot of scenarios that this person was going to do something different. He's What's gonna do, dude? There you go. It's nice to get all figured out there, my friend. You're all figured out there. So, all right. So I'm doing my job here. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can guess if you want. Not very exciting. The most exciting part of this job, if exciting is even the right word, is the drive. Look at this a heel. No, well, you got to wonder why people park that way. What is it about them that makes them want to park? It doesn't look like a new truck. Oh, well, whatever. All right, got to go do my thing. Alrighty, folks. I am back. It is 3 degrees here. It was 14 below here. This morning, so pretty close to what it was in Craig. It was 17 below in Craig. And by the way, I guessed it right. I think I guessed 3 or 4 degrees. So we are at the Granby City Market, leaving it. And now we're heading to beautiful Fraser, which I kind of enjoy this area. As far as the ski area, the ski location, yes, it's gentrified pretty horribly. And I say that because regular people can't really live in towns like this that much. Granby is a bit of an exception, I think. I'm not sure about Fraser or Tabernash. Tabernash is actually the next town we're going to see. So we'll just see. I'm going to leave my four-wheel drive in because I don't know what the pass looks like. There's a little tiny bit of a pass here. So I refer to pretty much any hill that you take over a mountain or mountain range as a pass, even if the state of Colorado might not. So, anyway, very bright day today. This is going to be an interesting day. Let's see how the camera is doing. I don't really know whether or not that polarizing filter needs to be turned a certain way, and I can't see well enough while I'm driving. I can't see the monitor and play with it without doing something like that car did, and I don't want to do that. I like to keep my wheels on the tarmac. So if you don't know, we passed through Steamboat, a ski resort, earlier, and now we're heading to Winter Park. We actually won't get into Winter Park, but you can see some of the ski runs if that's your thing. You know, when I was a kid, skiing was a great fun thing to do. I never got really good at it, downhill skiing, but I had fun, you know. But I was, you know, I guess I wasn't as physical or as athletic as other people because it just didn't catch with me. I did it a few times. But I like cross-country skiing because it's like a way to walk over the snow and, move around in the winter. So that was a lot of fun. And I'm not a bad cross-country skier, but I'm not great. I still fall on my ass if I haven't done it. I didn't ski any last year. Just too busy. Well, and not that much snow. Who knows what this year holds? It just depends on how busy I am. But I might go skiing. I have bicycles also, and I ride them, but I am not like the typical bike rider who gets in your way and gets on the lane. I always stay off the lane as well, unless I absolutely can't. But then the road is typically a really unused road or a dirt road. So I try to be really careful about it. I don't want anyone to kill me, and I don't want to die. When I'm riding my bike, I do it for exercise. So, but since I've gone to a keto diet, I'm not as worried about exercise as I used to be, because I think that when you eat the standard American diet, you need to exercise to burn off all that sugar, because you're basically eating sugar. The majority of what the diet, which is recommended for people to eat in America, is sugar. It's carbohydrates that they break down to sugar. Starches break down to sugar. Sugar is already sugar. So, I believe that, subject for another time, but I believe that it's probably more important to burn that stuff off if you have that kind of diet than it is to burn off ketones or fat energy. But there's another example where it is really important to think for yourself. I mean, if you allow the world to think for you, that's a terrible thing. I come about this conclusion from being a very non-thinking person, an extremely non-thinking person. And I think about things now. And before I thought about things, I don't know if an and would be there, but like I said, I don't have a script here. Before I thought about things, I just kind of went with the flow. I just went, well, whatever. Obviously dietitians have our best interests at heart. The government has our best interests at heart. You know what? That's not necessarily true. And even if people in the government do have our best interests at heart, that's not to say that the programs that are set up or the guidelines that they support are worth a shit. So another thing to ask yourself, is your diet the right diet? Are you eating the right things? And did you know that the reason that the American diet is the way it is mainly because of cereal companies, food companies, and vegan and anti-meat activists? It's not to do with your actual health. It's to do with money, and it's to do with a political point of view. Because if you notice, fat is supposed to be bad for you, and you're supposed to get most of your nutrition through carbohydrates, and carbohydrates is sugar. That's all it is. Your body breaks down every damn bit of carbohydrate into sugar. So, if you're not a thinking person, you might want to consider that. Because I'll guarantee you, if you're eating the regular American diet, you're going to die younger than your parents, more than likely. and you're going to have the complications that are basically complications that have come about in the last, let's say, 75 years, and that is diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and cancer. I guess you could say cardiovascular, but stroke is really, it's kind of its own thing. It's obviously a vascular problem, but like I said, if you're not thinking about it, it will probably come get you and force you to think about it. And it might be a wake-up call that you heed or ignore, and it could be in the form of diabetes, heart disease, a stroke, or it could be that or something else. For me, my digestion just shut down one day, completely shut down. And I had ever increasing dependency on fiber to be able to, to keep my system working. So, which now I find I don't touch this stuff. If you think about it, do you really want to take gigantic amounts of filler material just so your digestion will work? If you have to, you have to, but there's another way. And that is eating the diet that we were intended to eat. We are omnivores. But at the end of the day, we're mainly carnivores. We get our energy and we get all the building blocks that we need from fat and from protein. We don't get it from carbohydrates unless you have there's certain vitamins and certain elements you can get out of carbohydrates, but for the most part, fat and protein is what you need. Fat for energy and protein for the building blocks. And not only that, but cholesterol, which has been called a terrible thing and a bad thing, kind of like CO2 gas, is actually, people are starting to understand that cholesterol is not a bad thing. Generally, there is a bad type of cholesterol, but the funny thing about it, and I'm not going to get into the details of it, but the cholesterol that's bad usually starts out as good cholesterol, but then it gets destroyed by the sugar, the insulin that's in your body. That process destroys good cholesterol and turns it into bad cholesterol, and that bad cholesterol is what people talk about. So when you get on a keto type diet, and by the way, keto is not really a diet, not like the Atkins diet or whatever fad diet. Keto is a shortened term for ketones or ketosis, which is the other energy source, the energy source that bodies need that you get from fat. And from ketones, the body can create all the energy that it needs, all the types of energy. So if it needs glucose, it can actually create glucose from ketones. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, it's an interesting thing that I would have never known had I allowed the dietitians and the politicians to think for me about my diet, which I used to do. I used to just think, no matter whatever I eat, it comes out basically the same, so my body just magically turns it into the things that I need. However, that's not necessarily true. And now I understand it a little bit better. It's a lot like you're building a house. Let's just assume you're building a house. That's the analogy I'm going to make here, or the comparison. So you're building this house, and you go to the hardware store, and they don't have any good materials at all. Very few, but you get what you can, and you do your best with what you've got. That's kind of how sugar, as your main source of energy, and the diet that's associated with it works. When you're eating fat and protein, when you're eating an animal-based diet, which people hate that, right? But when you're eating an animal-based diet, It's a lot like going into the hardware store with all kinds of money and finding everything you need. And you buy everything that you need, and then when you get to building, you have all the materials you need to do everything right. You don't have to scrimp on anything. So that's a real silly way maybe to look at it. But it's not necessarily all that far out. But it does get more complicated, like everything. If you're not thinking about your diet, you should be thinking about your diet. If you're not thinking about what the politicians are selling you, you should think about that. If you have a lot of questions and you allow other people to answer them for you, and you don't do any thinking about that, you need to think. Thinking is a huge deal. It is very important. I have a feeling that thinking for yourself may be the main reason we're here on this planet to begin with. And by the way, thinking for yourself also dictates whether you believe that a creator made this universe, or that some random explosion made this universe. Because I'll tell you, that's another one of these things that you can actually think through. And you can make a reasonable assumption, not knowing very much about physics, reasonable enough to be able to take the ground that has been stolen from you, that the science ground that has been stolen from all of us. You can take that back, even if you're not a scientist, and you can make that decision. It's yours to make if you choose to make it. Think about it, pull it over, and use a little logic and a little bit of reason, and make your decision. So this is downtown Fraser. Winter Park is just right there. Obviously, you can see the mountains all around us. They're kind of self-explanatory. And as you can see, I'm heading to another retail outlet to do my thing, which shall remain unnamed. A thing which remain unnamed. I'm going up to here. All righty.